Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, we will discuss about the Chuck converter. The circuit diagram for the Chuck converter is shown in front of you. It consists of two inductors and two capacitors. And here you can see the position of the switches. In the first mode, your main switch, transistor switch, will be on. That will be at this position, and this point will be connected over here. And in the second mode of operation, your diode will be on and that will be connected at this point. So I have shown the position of the switches with the help of these arrows. In actual, these will be realized with the help of the MOSFET BJT IGBT at position number 1, and at position number 2 it will be realized with the help of the diode. The Chuck converter is basically a buck boost converter. It can step up the voltage, it can step down the voltage. We will drive the gain expression in this lecture. But the advantage of the Chuck converter over the conventional buck boost converter is that its input current is continuous. So the supply is utilized in a better way as compared to the conventional buck boost converter, in which the supply is only utilized in the first mode of operation, and in the second mode of operation the supply is disconnected from the converter circuit. So Chuck converter is the modified version of the buck boost converter and utilizes your source in a better way as compared to conventional converter. So now let's discuss its operation in the two modes. In the first mode, when this switch is on and this point is connected with the negative terminal of the source, so the equivalent circuit of your converter will be like this. In the first mode of operation, this point is connected over here, and as this point is connected over here, what about this capacitor? This capacitor is connected with this. Let's suppose this is the reference point. So your capacitor is connected over here, and along with that, as this is open, so your inductor is connected in series with your capacitor, that you can see over here, right? And this is the load part, the load resistance, and the capacitor that is connected in parallel to regulate the load voltage. Okay, now let's mark down the direction of current with respect to which we will analyze our converter circuit. So let's suppose that the current in the inductor 1 is in this direction and the voltage across this inductor is VL1. Similarly, the polarity across this capacitor is this plus minus, and the voltage across this capacitor is VC1, and the current in this inductor 2 is IL2, and the voltage across the inductor is this VL2, and this capacitor polarity is like that, it is C2, and the voltage across this capacitor is VCT, and the current in this capacitor is assumed to be in the downward direction as a reference current. And then the load current, load is the resistive one. If we assume this polarity plus minus, the load voltage is this one, and the load current, this I naught T, will be equal to V naught T divided by the load resistance R. And the average value of the load voltage is capital V, right? And the average value of this inductor current is IL2, average value of the inductor voltage is VL1, inductor current is IL1, and for this inductor it is VL2, and for this capacitor it is VC2, right? So capital symbols will be used to represent the average value of the certain parameter. Okay, so in first mode of operation we have this equivalent circuit. So you know that for the analysis of the converter we need to know about the voltage across the inductor. So we will be looking for the voltage across this inductor, and we will be looking for the current through the capacitors. So we have four elements, two inductors and the two capacitors, which are the energy storage elements, and we will be looking for the inductor voltages and the capacitor currents. So in the first mode of operation, if I look for the first inductor is in parallel to your supply when your main switch is in the on state. It means your inductor voltage VL1 will be equal to your supply voltage VG. And if we look at the change of current through the inductor, the rate of change of current, that is di by dt. So the current in this inductor is IL1. So inductor voltage VL1, that is equal to L1 into dIL1 by dt, that should be equal to Vg. So from here I can say the rate of change of current through the inductor is this one, Vg by L, the voltage across the inductor divided by the inductance itself, and the voltage across the inductor is on this side is Vg, over here is 0 volts, so net voltage across the inductor is Vg, right? So for first inductor we have written the voltage and the rate of change of current. Now looking for the second inductor, if you look at the circuit, so the capacitor is connected with the reference point like this. So let me mark it over here, this is the reference point. So this point is considered positive because we assumed this polarity across the capacitor. So with reference to that one, the voltage across the capacitor will be like this, positive over here and the negative over here. Now the voltage at this terminal of the inductor is minus Vc1 when measured with respect to this reference, and the voltage at the load is, let's suppose, V0 compared with this, measured with respect to this reference. So what is the voltage across the inductor? Voltage across the inductor will be equal to Vc1 minus V0. So this is the voltage across the second inductor. Now this voltage VL2 will be equal to L2 into dIL2 by dt, that is equal to this part. So from here we can, if we shift IL2 on this side, we can write down the expression for the rate of change of current through the inductor, dIL2 by dt. So this is these are the two equations now will be used later on to establish the volt second balance. Okay, so now looking for the capacitor current in the first capacitor, that is this one. If you look at that one, the capacitor current is like that. If I go back and look at this circuit, we said that the capacitor current will be assumed in this direction. So if the capacitor current is going to flow like this, so this current is going to enter into the inductor, so it is equivalent to your inductor current. So IC1 is equal to IL2. So first of all, you can write down this equation from here, looking at the circuit and observing that the capacitor and the inductor, they are in series, so their currents will be same, right? So in terms of average value, this IL2 will be written like that, IL2 the average value of the inductor current, right? That will be the average value of the capacitor current. So this capacitor current now can be written as C1 into dVc1 by dt, that is equal to IC1. So using this expression over here, we can say that dVc1 by dt, that is equal to IC1 by C1. So shifting the C1 on this side and taking the average value of this one, IC1 is equal to IL2 and that is equal to IL2. So we can write it in terms of the inductor current. IL2 divided by C1 will be the rate of change of voltage across the capacitor 1. And similarly, if we look at the capacitor 2, this capacitor 2, so what will be the current in this capacitor? The inductor current IL2 minus the load current I0t, the rest of our current will go through the capacitor 2, IC2. So you can see this is the equation for the capacitor 2, IC2 is equal to IL2 minus I0. Considering the average values, average value of the inductor and the average value at the load. Average value at the load can be calculated by dividing the load voltage with the load resistance. So we can write it like that I0 is equal to V0 by R, right? Now the capacitor current can be written like this, C2 into dVc2 by d2. We are talking about the second capacitor, that's why we will be considering that capacitance and the voltage across that one, that is equal to IC2, and IC2 is equal to this one, right? So from here I can write down this equation that will be defining the rate of change of voltage across the second capacitor, and that will be the rate of change of voltage across your load as well, because your capacitor 2 is connected in parallel to your load. So I can also write that this is equal to dV0 by dt, right? Rate of change of output voltage, because your capacitor is connected in parallel to the load. Okay, now let's look at the second mode of operation. So this was our circuit. In the second mode of operation, this switch is going to be connected over here and this path will be open. So in that case, we can say that these two will be in series and will be connected with your supply, and your inductor, this will be connected in parallel to your load resistance and the load capacitor as well. So let's look at the equivalent circuit. in the second mode of operation. This is our equivalent circuit. I am calling it the load capacitor because it is connected in parallel to your load. Actually, the load is this one. It consists of only the resistance. So the second part, the inductor is connected in parallel to the capacitor or in parallel to your load. So now let's look at the inductor voltage in this case. So VL is equal to, for the first mode of operation, we are looking for this inductor voltage. So that will be equal to Vg minus the voltage across the capacitor, and the voltage across the capacitor is Vc1 with respect to this reference point, right? So the supply voltage with respect to this one is Vg, this voltage with respect to reference is Vc1. So what will be the voltage across this inductor? That will be equal to Vg minus Vc1. And what about the current in this loop? Let's suppose that is IL1. So dIL1 by dt will be equal to Vg minus Vc1 divided by L1, right? So this is the rate of change of current in your inductor in the second mode of operation. Now let's talk about the second inductor. For second inductor, as it is in parallel to the load, so the polarity across the inductor is this one, plus minus. We have taken this one as the reference from here, or sorry, from this circuit. This was the reference polarity for the inductor L2. So this point is connected now with the reference point. So the inductor voltage over here will be negative and the load voltage is positive over here. So it means they have the opposite polarity. That's why we are going to say that this inductor voltage is opposite in terms of polarity with respect to your load voltage. So VL is equal to minus V naught. However, they are same in magnitude because your inductor is connected in parallel to your load, right? And what about the average current through the capacitor? The average current through the capacitor will be 0. So whatever will be the average current of your inductor, that will be going through your load. So load average current will be equal to the average current of this inductor. Okay, now looking for the inductor voltage. So inductor voltage is L2 dIL2 by dt, that is equal to VL2, and VL2 is basically your load voltage because your inductor is connected in parallel to that one. So I can say that dIL2 by d2 is equal to load voltage divided by the inductance, and this is equal to the negative of the load voltage, right? So minus V naught by L2. So this is the equation defining the rate of change of current in your inductor. So this negative sign is indicating that your inductor is going to act as the source, and the energy that was stored in this inductor, half Li2 square, that will be now dissipated across the load resistance, right? Okay, so now looking for the capacitor. For capacitor current in this circuit over here is equal to your inductor current. So IC1 is equal to IL1, in terms of average value it is capital IL1, and the rate of change of voltage can be written by this equation, because this is the capacitor current IC is equal to C1 into dVc1 by dt. So taking this value over here and then shifting this C1 over here, so this will define the slope of the capacitor 1 voltage in the second mode of operation. And similarly, looking for this capacitor, the second capacitor, right? So this capacitor current is equal to inductor current minus the load current. So that you can see over here, capacitor current is inductor current minus the load current. So in terms of average values, you can write it like that. And when you are considering average value, it means you are neglecting the small ripple that is present in the capacitor voltage or in the inductor current waveform. Okay, so from here I naught can be calculated as V naught by R. But what is I naught? I naught is the average current across the load. So average voltage divided by the resistance, you will get the average current. So we can write this equation like this, and rearranging it in writing for the rate of change of voltage across the capacitor, because this is equal to capacitor current IC2 is equal to C2 into dVc2 by dt. So shifting this C2 on this side, So you can write down the equation for the rate of change of current of the second capacitor voltage in the second mode of operation. Now let's look at the inductor 1 waveform. So for that, let's look at the voltages. In the first mode of operation, the inductor voltage is equal to your supply voltage. This one, I am talking about the inductor 1. So it is Vg for the interval d into Ts. We are assuming that your converter is operating in the CCM, continuous conduction mode. Inductor current is not going to become 0. So in the first mode of operation, when you are going to turn on this switch, your inductor current will be increasing linearly and your switch will be on for the interval dts. Inductor current will be increasing from some minimum current I1 to some maximum current I2, and in the second interval d prime ts, when your diode will be turned on, your inductor current will be decreasing. Your inductor will be acting as a source of energy, right? It will in the first mode it is storing the energy half Li square. It is going to act as the load. In the second mode of operation, it will be delivering that energy to the other components, right? So over here, the inductor L1 is going to act as the source, act as the load. It is storing the energy, and its voltage is equal to Vg, that is the supply voltage. And in the second mode of operation that we have seen over here, this inductor is delivering the stored energy half Li square and to this capacitor, right? So in the first mode it has stored energy. In the second mode, now it is going to act as a source and delivering its energy to the capacitor. Capacitor is going to act as a load. It is taking the energy from this inductor, and in this case the voltage across the inductor we have already seen is equal to Vg minus Vc1, and the inductor current now will be decreasing. It will be with the negative slope, and that slope is this one. And why it is negative? Because it is delivering the energy to your capacitor. So looking at these two, we can draw the inductor 1 voltage waveform in the first mode of operation, that is for dts. It is equal to Vg, and in the second mode of operation it is Vg minus Vc1, that is for interval d prime ts. So this will be considered positive and this will be considered negative, and we know that the average voltage across the inductor should be equal to 0, and from that we have the volt second balance equation, that the volt second product for the inductor should be 0. So let's look at the volt second product of this waveform. So in the first mode of operation, we have dts interval and the height is Vg. So it is a rectangle, so its area will be Vg into d into ts. So that you can see over here, this is the area, that is the positive area, and then the negative area, this one Vg minus Vc1 into d prime ts. So this will give you the area of the negative part. So the sum of these two should be equal to 0. Volt second balance should be maintained. Volt second product across the inductor should be 0. Then its average value will be 0, because we know that inductor average voltage in a cycle will be equal to 1 by Ts integration of the inductor voltage over the interval. So this is basically the area under the curve. This is representing this integral, right? And when we are going to divide it by Ts, we will get the average value of the inductor, and that should be equal to 0. So dividing this equation by Ts will be eliminated from this equation. So simplifying this one like that, and further to this step, you can relate the capacitor 1 voltage with the input voltage, and that is related by the factor 1 by d prime. So 1 by d prime, if you remember, this was the gain for the boost converter. So over here we have the boost operation. If we look at with respect to the capacitor voltage will be higher than your input voltage. Why it will be higher? Because you can see over here, when the capacitor inductor was there in the first mode, the inductor polarity was like this, plus minus, because it was in parallel to your source. And when you are going to interrupt the current, it is momentarily going to change its polarity, and this is going to become negative, this is going to become positive, and your source is like that. So plus minus will be the voltage that will be appearing across this capacitor. So this is the reference polarity, but actual polarity across the inductor is like this one in the second mode of operation. So plus minus, the voltage over here will be higher that will be equal to your Vg plus the voltage across your inductor. So your capacitor will get charged to that one. So we have the boost operation with respect to this capacitor voltage and the input voltage over here, right? So the capacitor will be charged to the higher voltage, that will be equal to Vg plus VL1. So this will be the voltage across the capacitor, and that is shown in this equation that we have derived, that capacitor 1 compared with the input voltage, that will be at boosted voltage, and that voltage can be determined with the help of this expression. 1 by d prime represents the boost operation. Okay, now let's look at the inductor 2 in the first mode and in the second mode. So in the first mode, the inductor 2 voltage is this one, minus Vc1 minus V naught, and this is going to be there for the time d into ts in the first, because the first mode of operation is for this interval, and this is the inductor voltage. And in the second mode of operation, we have seen it over here. So inductor voltage was equal to minus V naught, right? And this is for interval d prime into ts. So now let's sketch the inductor 2 voltage. So it is minus Vc1 minus V naught for the interval dts, and for interval d prime ts it is equal to minus V naught. So this is the inductor voltage waveform, right? So again, the volt second balance should be maintained. Volt second product should be 0 for the inductor. So if you look at the volt second product in this interval, that is minus Vc1 minus V0 into dts, so you will get this term, and the volt second balance for this interval, that will be equal to minus V naught into d prime ts, so that you can see over here. So the sum of these two should be equal to 0. So simplifying, you are going to get this expression that output voltage is equal to minus d times the Vc1. So here you can see the buck operation, because the duty cycle is less than 1. So whatever will be your capacitor voltage, that will be stepped down when it will be appearing across the load, and the load voltage is V0. So over here was step up operation, over here is the step down operation, right? From capacitor to the output, capacitor voltage Vc1 to the output voltage, the relationship is that your capacitor voltage is stepped down when it is appearing across the load voltage, when it is appearing across the load, right? So now if you look at this part over here, this inductor was storing the energy, and it is delivering the energy to your capacitor in the second mode of operation. It is transferring the energy, right? And now if we compare it with respect to second mode, second part of the circuit, that is this one, in the first mode of operation, this capacitor was delivering energy to your inductor. Inductor was storing the energy, half IL2 square. This was the energy that was being stored in the inductor, and that was being delivered from this capacitor, right? And this capacitor was also delivering energy to this capacitor and the load resistance. And in the second mode of operation, the capacitor over here, which was absorbing, which was providing the energy to the inductor, now it is shifted to this part of the circuit that you can see over here. Now it is taking the energy from this inductor, and this second inductor, which was acting as the load or storing the energy in the previous mode, now is acting as the source and will deliver the energy to this capacitor and the load resistance, or this one and this one both are going to deliver energy to your load, right? So in the second mode of operation, this inductor is going to act as the source. Similarly, this inductor is going to act as the source, and similarly this inductor is going to act as the source. So this capacitor is switching between two parts. In the first mode, you can see it is over here and delivering the energy, and in the second mode it is shifted towards your supply, and it is taking the energy from the supply and from the inductor, and it is getting charged. And when the next mode will come, it will come to this part of the circuit and will deliver the energy to this inductor, capacitor and the resistance. Okay, so now as we have seen these two equations from the inductor voltage waveforms, we have the buck operation and the boost operation. Buck operation between Vc1 and V0 when your capacitor 1 is switched to the second part of the circuit, that is over here, right? When it is switched, so how its voltage will be appearing across the load, that will be related by minus D. Minus D, minus is indicating the negative polarity, because you can see positive over here, negative over here, and load polarity is plus minus. So minus D, buck operation with respect to this one. And when this capacitor is over here, as you can see in this mode over here, so then this capacitor will be charged to this voltage Vg plus VL1, boost operation, right? And boost operation is 1 by D prime. Okay, now we have these two operations. So from here now we can combine, we can replace this VC, we can replace this VC1 using the VC1 from this expression. So that will be equal to V naught by minus D. So if we use that one, if we use this equation 1 and 2, so V naught will be equal to minus dVc1, and from here we can write that Vc1 is equal to Vg by D prime. From here Vc1 is equal to Vg over D prime. So taking this value over here, so we can say that V naught is equal to minus D over D prime into Vg, or we can say V naught by Vg is equal to minus D over D prime, right? So what type of converter it is? If the value of the D is, let's suppose, equal to 0.5, so what will be V naught by Vg? V naught by Vg will be equal to minus 1. This will this is indicating that whatever is your output voltage, whatever is your input voltage, same is your output voltage. It is just going to act as the inverter, polarity inverter. Output voltage will be having the opposite polarity with respect to the input. But what about if the D is less than 0.5? Let's suppose D is equal to 0.25. If the D is equal to 0.25, so what will be D prime? That will be equal to 0.75. So now if you look at this one, if it is 0.25 and this is 0.75, so this is equal to 1 by 3, right? 1 by 3. So V naught by Vg is equal to 1 by 3. So what that means? That means that output voltage is 3 times less than the input voltage. So it is going to act as the buck converter. So if the D is less than 0.5, your converter will be acting like the buck converter. It will step down the voltage. But what if you have the voltage if you have the duty cycle above 0.5? So let's suppose that D is equal to 0.75. So in that case D prime will be equal to 0.25. So from this expression I can say that 0.75 divided by 0.25, that will be equal to 3. So the output voltage will be equal to 3 times your input voltage. So it is going to act as the boost converter. So now it depends upon the duty cycle. If the duty cycle is between 0 and 0.5, your this converter will act as the buck converter, and if the duty cycle is above 0.5, this will act as the boost converter, and if the duty cycle is equal to 0.5, then it will be acting as the polarity inverter. Whatever is the input voltage, that will be reflected at the output. But remember, over here there we are considering the ideal components, ideal semiconductor devices in this discussion. Okay, now let's look at the inductor current waveform. In the first mode of operation, as we discussed, your inductor 1 will act as the load, and the current through that one will be increasing, and the slope will be Vg by L1. So we have determined all of these slopes when we were writing the equations over here, that you can see Vg by L1 is the slope of the inductor current in the first mode, and for the second mode the slope is this one, the current will be decreasing. So that is sketched over here in this inductor current waveform. Your current is increasing from I1 to I2, and the slope is Vg by L1. And in the second mode the current will be decreasing because your inductor is going to act as the source, and it is providing the energy to the capacitor Vc1, and the slope will be Vg minus Vc1 by L2. Right, so the current ripple is this one. Let's suppose this is equal to 2IL1, and this is the average value of your inductor current, right? Okay, so now by defining this one, this is delta y, and let's suppose this is delta x. So we will be having this triangle for this discussion. So delta y is equal to slope into delta x. So delta y we have assumed it equal to, that is 2 times the delta IL1. And what is delta IL1? Delta IL1 is basically this one, delta IL1, right? So the difference of the minimum current from the average value and the maximum current from the average value. Average value will be there at the center. So we have this equation delta y that is equal to slope into delta x. So from here I can say that 2 IL will be equal to slope. What is slope? Slope is over here is Vg by L1. Taking this slope, and delta x is T on of your transistor time, and that is equal to dTs. So we can write it like that, dTs. So rearranging and simplifying, we will be getting this equation for the ripple current, that is the ripple in the inductor 1 current will be equal to VGD by 2L1 into Fs. So Ts is basically is equal to 1 by Fs. Fs is the switching frequency. So we can write it like that. So this equation will be used for the analysis. If you know the input voltage, if you know the duty cycle and the inductance and the switching frequency, you can find out the inductor current ripple. You can also write down this equation in terms of output, because you know that Vg by V naught by Vg is equal to minus d over d prime. So you can use this one over here, and for the calculations you can use the absolute value over here. So you can find out the ripple either using the Vg or using the V naught. And if you rearrange this equation, you can write down it for the inductance. So for inductance it is like that. This equation will be definitely used for the design. So if the input voltage is given to you, duty cycle is specified, switching frequency is specified, and if I say this current should not be more than 2% of your load current, so you can calculate it and then you can set it over here, and correspondingly you can find out the required value of the inductance. So for the design, this equation will be used. Okay, now let's look at the inductor 2. Inductor 2, in the first mode of operation, its slope was this one, slope for the inductor 2, and in the second mode of operation, its slope is equal to minus V naught by L2, that you can see over here. So now using these two slopes, we can set up the inductor 2 current waveform. In the first mode, we say that it is going to be increasing, right, and then over here it is decreasing because it is delivering the stored energy to the load. So in the first mode the slope is this one, and in the second mode the slope is this one, and again we are assuming that this difference is 2 delta IL2 now, because we are considering the second inductor, and this portion is delta IL2 and this portion is delta IL2. So you can consider either this part or this part. This one is for the interval dTs, and this is for the interval d prime ts, and the inductor current is continuous because it is not going to become zero. From here the next cycle is going to start, so it will be the periodic one. For the stable operation of the converter, it should be periodic. Okay, now using the same formula that we discussed above, delta y is equal to slope into delta x. So delta y is 2 IL2, this is the slope, and we are considering the first interval, so we will be considering this delta x as dTs from the first interval. So simplifying, you can write down the expression for the ripple of the second inductor, ripple current of the second inductor, right, and from here you can also find out the value of the inductance L2. So L2 will be given by this expression, right? Just rearranging this one, you are going to get expression for the L2. So you have analyzed your inductor current waveform, and for the design you will be using this equation. Okay, in the previous videos we have seen that if we decrease the average value, how to decrease the average value? By increasing the load resistance. So load current I is equal to V by R, and if I look at the circuit, the average current of the inductor 2 will be the average current of your load, because the average current of the capacitor will be 0, right? So whatever is the average current of this inductor 2, that is the average current of your load. So now if you decrease the average value of the load current, so what is going to happen? The average value through the inductor is also going to decrease. And how to decrease that one? By increasing the load resistance. So if you increase the load resistance, so let's suppose that the average current is reduced, and this is the situation that your inductor current is now, inductor current ripple is like this. This is 2 delta I L2. So now it is just touching the 0 point. If you further decrease the average load current, average inductor current will be decreased, and then your current is going to become discontinuous. So let's suppose that if this is the case, so now the current will be discontinuous. So what is the condition for the boundary condition when the circuit will enter from CCM, continuous conduction mode, to discontinuous conduction mode? That depends upon the average value of the load current, and that also depends upon the duty cycle. If you are changing the duty cycle, the current will be changing, right? So now at this instant of time, your this delta IL2 will be equal to the average current of your inductor 2. So we will be using this condition when this delta IL2 becomes equal to IL2, or this 2IL2 becomes twice of the average, because whatever is this one, same values over here. So we can say when 2IL2 will become equal to the twice of the average value, that is the critical point. So that is shown over here when 2IL2 is equal to the average value of the um, inductor current, then at that instant of time your circuit is going from what we say CCM mode to the discontinuous conduction mode. So for critical value of the inductance, you have this equation that 2IL1, that is the twice of the ripple, should be equal to 2 times of the average value of the inductor current. So using this you can work out for the either inductor, either it's inductor 1 or it's inductor 2, you can work out the critical value of the inductance, right? So this is for the inductance 1. For inductance 1 you will be considering the ripple of the inductor 1 current and its average value, so equating it, and then using the expressions those we have defined, so that can be written like that, and now translating this Ig in terms of the load current. So we note that the transfer function that V by Vg is equal to minus 1 by d prime. So what about the current? For the current it will be opposite, because the input and the output power are assumed to be the same one for the ideal converter. So we can say that I naught by Ig, that will be equal to minus this is minus d over d prime, so this will be minus d prime over d, right? So using this equation you can write down this Ig in terms of the I naught like this, and then simplifying you can go through these steps, so you can find out the expression for the inductance, and that inductance will be the critical inductance, because you have used this condition, the condition when your circuit is entering from the CCM mode to the DCM mode. So if your inductance will be less than this critical inductance, so your circuit will be operating in the DCM mode, and if it is higher than the, if your circuit inductance is higher than this critical inductance, your circuit will be operating in the continuous conduction mode, right? So it depends upon the load resistance R, D prime, the duty cycle D, and the Fs, right? So when any one of these change, your circuit can enter from CCM mode to the DCM mode. So we have seen the critical inductance for the first one, and now for the second one you will have to relate the ripple of that one to IL2 with the average value of that inductor. So now you have worked out the expression for I2 in the previous slide, so that you can use over here. The second inductor current is equal to the average load current, so it is replaced with 2 I naught, and the I naught can be written as V by R, and then this V naught can be written in terms of the input voltage, because V naught by Vg is equal to minus d over d prime for this converter. So using this over here and simplifying, you can find out the critical value of the second inductance L2, right? So this is the critical value. If this will be higher than your circuit inductance, if the circuit inductance L2 is higher than this critical value L2C, then you will be in the CCM mode, otherwise you will be in the DCM mode. So critical inductance is very important when you are considering the CCM and the DCM mode of your converter, right? It is the minimum inductance that is required, and that depends upon the circuit parameters. Over here you can see D prime. D prime is the control parameter. You are controlling it with the help of your microcontroller and processor, because it is the duty cycle and it is the gate voltage waveform, or the base voltage of your switch, because this time is DTS and this time is D into TS. So this is the off duty cycle, right? So your off duty cycle will be changing when your on duty cycle will be changing. So that is the control one. So your circuit can go from continuous to discontinuous mode based upon your control signal, and it is also based upon the load resistance. So if you will be increasing load resistance, so this L2C will be increasing, and if your circuit inductance is less than that one, your circuit will enter into the discontinuous conduction mode. Okay, now let's look at the capacitor. So the capacitor in the capacitor current. So for that I am going to the previous slide that we discussed. In the first mode, the capacitor 1 current is equal to IL2, and in the second mode the capacitor current is IL2 minus V naught by R. And now we can sketch the waveform using these two values for the capacitor current. So the capacitor current in the first mode of operation, it is equal to IL2, and first mode of operation is for interval DTS, and in the second mode of operation it is equal to IL1, right, and that is for the interval DTS. So now the ampere second balance for the capacitor, average current of the capacitor should be equal to 0. So for this part, from here IL2 into DTS, and for this part it is IL1 into D prime TS, that should be equal to 0. So simplifying this one, you can relate the current of the inductor 1 with the current of the inductor 2, and that will be the buck boost operation, that is minus D by D prime, and these two currents will be opposite, that you can see from here, right. And for the second capacitor, if you take the values of the currents, so in the first mode it was equal to IL2 minus I naught, and in the second mode it is equal to IL2 minus I naught, but its direction is opposite. Over here it is delivering the energy to the load, and over here it is getting charge from the second inductor. So if you write down the volt second balance equation, ampere second balance equation, so area over here is this one, IL2 minus I naught into DTS, and the area in the second part is this one. So now simplifying this equation, you can relate important parameters of the converter circuits. Okay, now if you look at the capacitor voltage in the first mode of operation, if we are talking about the capacitor 1 was delivering energy to the inductor, so its voltage will be decreasing, it will be having the negative slope. And in the second mode it was getting charge in the first part of the circuit, so it has the positive slope because it is storing the energy, and the stored energy will be half CV square, and over here it will be delivered, that is half CV square capacitor voltage. Okay, so we have this one as the capacitor voltage waveform. The average value of the capacitor voltage will be like this, right. Okay, so now what is this total ripple? Let's suppose that it is equal to 2 VC1 total ripple, and the average value is somewhere in between. Half of the this value 2 delta VC1 is below this average value. It means VC1 delta VC1 is the difference between the minimum value of the capacitor voltage and the average value, and similarly delta VC1 can be defined as the difference between the maximum value of the capacitor voltage and its average value, right. So now we can use this expression again, delta Y is equal to slope into delta X. So what is delta Y? That is equal to 2 delta VC1, and what is the slope? If we consider the first part, the slope is IL2 by C1 into delta X, and delta X in this case is DTS. So using the first part, we can write down this equation, and then simplifying we can find out the expression for the ripple voltage of the capacitor 1. You can also work it out from this part, and then this will be in the terms of D prime, right. So delta Y is same, delta X is D prime TS, and you will be using this slope for the second part, right. So you can work it in either way. I have considered this first part. So delta VC1 will be given by this expression, and you can rearrange it to get the value of the C1, that will be like this, and you can relate this IL2 with the I naught, as we have seen that the inductor 2 current is the load current, so this is replaced as I naught over here, right. So now if you know the average load current and you know the duty cycle at which you are operating your circuit, you can find out what should be the value of the capacitance. This duty cycle is basically worked out looking at the required output voltage, because you know that V by Vg is equal to minus D over D prime. So you can work out what is the required output voltage, and for that what will be the value of the D. So that will be used over here, and according to that all the other circuit parameters will be adjusted, so that you have the minimum current ripple in the inductor and minimum voltage ripple in the capacitors, and you have the nearly constant voltage at the output. So C1 will be calculated with the help of this equation, or with the help of this equation. All the equations are same, but you are representing them in different circuit parameters, and those are easily transferable using the basic relation between the voltages at the input and the output, and the current at the input and the output, and looking at the circuit operation, that how the inductor currents and the voltage currents are related with each other. Okay, then for the critical value, the same condition will be applied, that 2 times of the capacitor ripple should be equal to 2 times of your capacitor average value, because when the average value will be decreasing, this waveform will be coming down, and it will be like that. And when it will be just touching this 0 point, at that point delta Vc1 will be equal to the average value of the capacitor. So using that condition that is described over here, so now delta Vc1 we have worked out, and what is this one? I naught d into 2 C1 into Fs, from where we have obtained this one, that is using this expression. Delta Vc shifted on this side, so I naught d divided by 2 C1 into Fs. So from this equation you have delta Vc1, and the average value of the Vc1, average value of the Vc1 will be equal to the V naught. How? Let's go back and look at the equivalent circuit. So if I go back and look at this part, average value of the inductor voltage is 0. So if it is 0, so average value of the capacitor voltage will be equal to this one, and that will be equal to your load voltage. So that's why we are going to equate it with the load voltage V naught. Okay, so now going back to the point, that is this one. Okay, so Vc1 is equal to V naught by D. We can write it like this. So now V naught can be written as I naught into R. So simplifying this one, you are going to get this equation, and the critical value of the capacitance will be equal to D square by 2R into Fs. So if your capacitance will be less than this value, there will be the discontinuous voltage, but if it is higher than this one, there will be the continuous voltage. So how you have related this V naught with the Vc1, that is with the help of the equation that we have already derived, that output voltage is related with your capacitor voltage by the buck operation. So Vc1 by Vg is 1 by D prime. So we have basically used this one over here to represent it equal to V naught by D. Okay, now for the second capacitor. So second capacitor, if you look at, we can use the charge balance equation. So if it is whatever is the charge that is stored in your capacitor, in when it is charging, the same charge must also be taken out, right, so that the voltage across the capacitor remains same and it is operating in the stable region. So let's assume that for half of the time it is charging, Ts by 2. So for that we have this triangle. So what will be the delta Q? Delta Q will be the charge. Charge is basically the product of the current and the time, right? So that is the area under this curve. So this is the triangle. So half, the base is Ts by 2, and the height is this one, because this is the current waveform of your capacitor. So this is, let's suppose, 2IC2, right, and the half of this one is delta IC2. We know that average value of the capacitor current is 0. So I is equal to 0, the average current of the capacitor, that is the 0 point, and for half time it will be the positive one, and half time it will be the negative one. Why? Because when it is storing the charge, it is the positive one. We can say the current is going into the capacitor, it is storing the energy, and when it will be delivering the energy, then the direction of the current will be outward. So that will be the negative current. So these two areas must be equal, and when it is storing the energy, when it is delivering the energy. So we are looking for the area under this triangle. So that is half base into height, and we can rearrange this equation by using the basic equation, that is Q is equal to CV. So I can say delta Q will be equal to C into delta V. So we can write it like that, that this delta Q will be equal to C2 into delta VC2, right? 2 is this one, 2 VC2, total current variation. Total change is 2 VC2, that's why this 2 is over there, and C2 is the capacitor. So this is the delta Q, and that is equal to half base into height. So now simplifying this one, you are going to get the second capacitor voltage ripple with this expression, and this can be further simplified and can be written like this, because your capacitor current to second capacitor current is your inductor current, because both of them are in series, that you can see over here. The capacitor current is the inductor current, right? So whatever will be the current ripple of this inductor, same current ripple will be there in this capacitor. So that's why we are going to consider them as the same one, so that you can use over here. And you can also express the capacitor to ripple voltage with the help of this expression. Okay, and what was the current ripple of your second inductor? That was equal to dVg by FL2. We have worked out it before. So using that one over here for delta IL2, replacing this one with this, so you can finally represent the capacitor voltage variation with the help of this expression, and you can rearrange it for the capacitance too. So capacitance to the critical sorry, not the critical, simple the capacitance value depending upon the circuit parameters will be given by this one. If you know that what should be the capacitor voltage variation, so for that you can work out the value of the capacitance. And for critical capacitance, as we have already established the condition that delta Vc2 should be equal to 2 times of the average value, and its average value is the load voltage, because it is connected in parallel with the load resistance. So we have this expression. So taking the expression for delta Vc2 from here, and V naught is equal to in terms of the Vg, it is like that, Vg d by d prime. So you can work out for the critical value of the capacitance, so that is given by this expression. Okay, so if I summarize this video, we have worked out, we have discussed the operation of the Cooke converter in detail, and we have worked out that how we can analyze this circuit. We have derived expression for the delta Vc1, delta Vc2, delta IL1, delta IL2, and we have worked out the expression for the critical value of the inductance 1, critical value of the second inductance, critical value of the first capacitance, critical value of the second capacitance, and we have also worked out the expression for C1, C2, L1 and L2 in the continuous conduction mode. So that's all from this video, that we have discussed the buck converter in detail. Now you should be able to analyze and design your Cooke converter, that is basically a buck boost converter, but its input current is continuous. And just I will take one more minute to show you that input current is continuous. So let's go back, and over here you can see yours in the second mode, your supply is in the loop, it is taking it is providing the current, and as well as in the first mode your inductor is connected and your supply is providing the current. So supply is being continuously utilized, input and the output voltage are related by this d by d prime, and input current is continuous. So the finally we can say that we have discussed the Cooke converter in detail, that is the buck boost converter, a modified buck boost converter. That's all from this video. Thank you very much.